How's it going, folks? I'm Matthew. This is Lemora's Cards, and today we're taking a look at the Beholder Gaming cEDH 10K LCQ event that just went down at Charlie's Collectible Show. I was not only in attendance, but I was part of the casting and was doing the commentary along with the Shawnee. So you can catch me on the stream if you didn't see me already, covering all the gameplay, covering all our rounds and our top 16 that we're looking at today. You can find the VOD for those games down below. There's a couple technical issues. There's some glare we couldn't deal with on one of the tables, but if you want to get a better idea of what some of the games look like, they're there. I actually know where to point you to, and I'm in there and I watched them and was able to, really comment on them, kind of go over what's happening, what we're thinking, what players might have been thinking throughout the game. Another quick thanks to Kiwi, official Kiwi Nye over on YouTube and all the other socials who ran the stream, did an absolutely amazing job, put a ton of work into it. We're probably going to be doing some event coverage together going forward, and I'm very excited to do it. Check out her channel. She has awesome tournament coverage videos featuring some coverage on this event. Hopefully sometime soon. We'll see when she gets to it. But again, thank you, Kiwi. Well, that being said, let's go ahead and hop into it. Use the link in the description below to download Whatnot, and you'll get $15 to use to buy Magic singles, sealed product, get anything that you want, really. There's no limits. You just get $15 on the account for free just for signing up. Use the link in the description below. Give Whatnot a try. So, the meta breakdown. We had 7 Tymna Kraums in the top 16. You guys know how much I skimmed through Tymna Kraum. You haven't seen anything yet. We're gonna be moving at ludicrous speed. There is a lot of new stuff or potential new slots to test in Tymna Kraum, so we will get to go over some of those new cards in the context of this, and I did get to see a lot of them in action, so we'll be able to talk about that. But 50% conversion rate, 14 Tymna Kraums, 7 of them top 16. 1 Nadu making it in for 7 entries. We had 2 Sisays for 6 entries, a Tivit sneaking in there, 2 Magdas out of 3, which is really cool. And then we didn't really see that many other popular decks. There's a lot of like 3 ofs and 2 ofs, and we got some that got snuck in there like Sidar Kondo. Most people on the stream did not know what that card does because it doesn't do a lot. Not a lot to go over other than, like, you can see not a great representation of Turbo. There's some Malcolm Vials, which again can slant mid-range, Corvolt's here, Rog Thras, I guess arguably Turbo. So there's decks that slant proactive, I mean like Stella Lee, but the Grixis villain of the format right now literally made no appearance. So let's get a look at our deck list. All right, we do actually get to start with one of my favorites to go over, and that is Erinis Street Urchin. We've talked about this deck a whole bunch on the channel at this point. It is a Gruul deck that uses its commander, 1 to control the board, has Death Touch, and its ability given to it by its background lets you sack a creature or an artifact to ping something. So you can see this commander pairing really controlling a board that goes long. It can make it very difficult for creature decks to stay in the game as long as Erinis has resources to spend on it. They get to win with Protean Hulk lines. They have a sack outlet in the command zone. That helps a lot for that. Can win with Kiki Jiki Snoop lines. We'll get to go over those. Lots of cool stuff like that. So we see Invasion as a tutor, Minsk and Boo as a pretty powerful value engine in these colors. Creatures, lots of dorks and lots of creatures in general. A lot of stapley stuff you'd expect. Skirt Prospector is going to help us with our goblin package that we have, and it also is part of one of our lines. Sylvan Safekeeper is going to help make our creature combos very hard to deal with. We are a Collector Oof deck, which can seem awkward because we're also at times a Dockside Temur Sabertooth combo deck. We're also on Null Rod. But because Street Urchin lets you sacrifice a creature or an artifact whenever we need to, we can just sack the Oof, sack the Null Rod, whatever, any of our own stacks pieces that are stopping us, get them out of the way, boom, combo off. So we do have that line of make infinite treasures, then we can start sacrificing a treasure to ping everybody down with our infinite mana. So we have some value stuff like Eladamri, which is also just really hard to deal with. I've talked about this card in these kind of decks. It looks a little slower, but these decks are a little slower, right? I mean, what do you want me to say? We got Hyrax Tower Scout, which can combo with our Kiki Jiki. Our simplest Protean Hulk line that we have access to that we got to see happen at instant speed on the stream, which is really cool, was sacrificing Protean Hulk, searching for Conspicuous Snoop, Torch Courier, and Goblin Recruiter, putting Kiki Jiki on top of your library. Then you can use Conspicuous Snoop with Kiki Jiki's ability to tap targeting itself, making a hasty copy of itself because it's a non-legend. Kiki Jiki can do that. And then you make infinite Conspicuous Snoops. Then with your last Conspicuous Snoop, you tap it down, copying Goblin Recruiter to change the top of your library now to Skirk Prospector to have infinite mana out of our infinite goblins. And so we can sacrifice our goblins to 4 mana to then sacrifice the rest of our goblins to ping everybody down with Erinis Street Urchin. We have some ways to get in there, like Magus of the Order. We also have Natural Order itself, Professional Face Break Room. I have some treasures lying around. This can also let us have something to do with treasures, even if we have have an oof effect in play that we're not able or willing to sacrifice. Toski can be nice to getting in some cards. And then we got Wandering Archaic, which can be a really nice option in these kind of decks. If we're on the Eldritch Evolution, which we definitely are. Being able to turn like a 3-drop, like a Imp Recruiter into a Wandering Archaic, pretty nice. Sorceries, literally all tutors. We got Sylvan Scrying to get some lands. The rest get us some creatures. Natural Order kind of being the just 4 mana, put a Protean Hulk into play. Instants, not too many. We're mainly on the creatures. We do see the Realms Uncharted, which was in the last one that I've seen, maybe kind of becoming a staple here. We do see lots of land packages that are more heavily prioritized nowadays. Cards like Archdruid's Charm and just new busted utility lands really enabling that. Again, a bunch of tutors, ways to protect our stuff like Quick Reflexes. Artifacts, we have a bunch of mana, disruptive pieces like Vexing Bauble, Null Rod, Trinisphere, and then a combo piece like Cloudstone Curio. Good card like Curse Mirror that can copy our dockside, somebody else's, stuff like that. Enchantments, Carpet, Survival for tutoring. Sylvan Library to give us some card advantage in a slowed down game. And then Pattern of Rebirth, we have a way to sacrifice a creature so we can just boom, put a Protean Hulk into play, sacrifice it, win the game. And then 27 lands, Command Beacon, E-Zone, got the Horizon of Progress and the Lazotep of Quarry. I think these have been showing up more in these kind of decks. Quarry just being just a great include in Protean Hulk decks, having the ability to sack a creature on a land and add colored mana, plus the ability to rebuy it. Like you could potentially, if somehow your Protean Hulk thing gets disrupted, go for it again or bring back something else that's good from the graveyard. It's pretty high. Then we've got a Tivit. We're on Teferi and Tezzeret. Not too heavy on the creatures. We got the Dauntless, bunch of the stapley kind of Tivit cards. We are on Talion as an engine. We don't see any of the Urzas, stuff like that. None of the new clones being tested. A card we've seen in this event and was legal this past weekend was Mockingbird, which has a very powerful interaction with Ranger Captain, but we don't see that here. We don't see a Fimage, which is kind of odd. We might see Imposter Mech probably down below. That's where I'm going to expect to see it because like Tivits love getting a dockside. It's still any deck that can't run dockside, they need to figure out a way to do it. Okay, some stuff I haven't seen here before. Jolted Awake, MH3 card. Choose up to 1 target artifact or creature card in your graveyard. You get 2 energy. Pay any amount of energy. You would that card's mana value. Return to the battlefield. So this is a 1 mana way to buy back your Time Sieve. That's pretty hot. You can get back your Time Sieve, Grand Abolisher, Thoracle or Bowmasters. Okay, I actually really like that. That's a pretty cool piece of tech. And we're also on the Transmute artifact, of course, and then kind of stapley cards. We're on the Deluge. Our instants, we're on Offer, Dispel. You tend to see those kind of cards in this. Usually the Tivits go heavier on the interaction. They go a little bit deeper, stuff like Mana Drain. We're even on Limdul's Vault, which we see not show up the most, usually in the lower color blue-black decks. We are not on Ad Nauseam. I don't know the last time I covered a Tivit that was. We're on the Intuition, which I do really like. It's really clean with this deck. You can, if you've got Tivit in play, you can Intuition for Savine's Wreck, Time Sieve, Grand Abolisher, get them both into play. You're doing pretty good. Artifacts. But no, how can we Intuition? We got the Grafdigger's Cage. It's fine, dude. I guess you can now also Intuition for, because it's just they can't be cast. So now you can get Jolted Awake, Savine's Wreck, Time Sieve itself. Yeah. I mean, that works too. And then a bunch of rocks. We do see the Imposter Mech. Guys, I figured it out. And then we got the One Ring. Enchantments, kind of what you expect. Remora, Blind Obedience, Rhystic, Smothering Tithe, and then 29 lands, a little bit on the heavier side. Cavern of Souls on Rogue, baby. We are on the Urza Saga. We go for the Forbidden Orchard in our 3-color deck. How greedy are we? I'm going to say you put Undercity Sewers in here over Forbidden Orchard. Next up, we got a Magda. You guys know I love talking this deck up. We got a bunch of the dwarves that technically have text. Let's see if there's any of the new cards here because there are some good new ones and we do see them. Bark Form Harvester. This is such a slam dunk in this deck. It's a 3 mana changeling artifact. So it's an artifact dwarf. Huge for Magda. That's already just playable basically. Plus it has 2 mana, put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. This means that you don't really have to run some of the kind of bad artifacts the deck has run to be able to loop through the deck. Now you just get to have that effect on a artifact dwarf. We see Crime Novelist, which hasn't shown up I think in too many. It's when you sack an artifact, you make a red, which is really nice for Magda because usually you want to be sacrificing treasures, not actually making mana with them. So being able to get the best of both worlds like Hannah Montana is very nice. Got the Dwarven Blood Boiler with the Batter Golem kind of synergy combo thing we can do. Realm Scorcher Hellkite, which we've seen a lot of the decks use as their outlet towards the end now. So that's not too surprising, but also seeing Ancient Copper Dragon, which very few of the Magdas I've seen run this. It can be a really nice addition in a slower metagame where you can reasonably expect to actually just straight up resolve a 6-drop dragon. Pretty hard sell for people to want to Force of Will this thing. You might actually get through with it. Sorceries, not too many, just ways to make mana. We've got the 2 MDFCs. Destroy target land, they can search for a basic. And then creatures without flying can't block is actually relevant with Magda because you might have a bunch of little dorks that people would just block with their Tymnas and stuff that, hey, they actually can't block anymore. And I just got rid of your Gaia's Cradle or E-Zone or whatever. Instance, a whole bunch of removal. Lots of ways to deal with stuff like Draenith Oppo that stops us. We're going with the sudden shocks. Oh, interesting here. Blades of Velis Vel. So it's a dwarf. Up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+0 and gain all creature types. It's another way to change the typing of one of our like artifact creatures. This is where you usually see different options here. So we'll see what we got. We're on the Chalice of the Void. Really slow people down. Here it looks like we're on Clown Car, Smuggler's Copter, Flywheel Racer, which is a mana dork, and with Vigilance, and then High Speed Hover Bike, enters a tab up to 1 target creature, as well as Unlicensed Hearse, which is Graveyard Hate. It's like that's our main vehicles. Still running Tel Jalad Stylus, which is a way to get rid of like a potential hate piece of your own if you needed to, or also be able to loop maybe something like with the Twin Shot Sniper. After you get infinite treasures, you can start untapping the Tel Jalad Twin Sniper into play with Magda activation. Put it on bottom, activate again, shoot, bottom. You guys get it. We got the Cage. Does mean we can't tutor up creatures while this is in play, so none of that going on. Artifact Dwarves, new cards like Disruptor Flute, which are nice that you can search for them and then just also reasonably cast them as a bit of interaction. Sculpting Steel, copy artifacts, Clock of Omens, Tangle Wire. Lots of the effects we're used to seeing in here as tutorable targets. Portal of Phyrexia, Spine of Ishna, which shows up every now and then. Godpharaoh Statue, but also running Nexus of Becoming, which is at the beginning of combat your turn, draw a card. Then you may exile an artifact or creature card from your hand. If you do, you make a copy of it. So whatever, exile, Godpharaoh Statue, it's in play now. Once just that trigger happens, boom, it's put into play. And then 27 lands, running the utility stuff we see with the Magdas. Are we on Arena of Glory? I think that's the newest edition. Some of them are playing. No, but we are on Talon Gates. No Fomori Vault, it looks like. Alrighty, we're on one of our Tymna Kroms now. We are 13 creatures, but we're not the standard 13. It looks like we're running DRC, maybe over Draenith, and then Mockingbird, probably over Fimage, which is about what I expected once I realized you could search it with Ranger Captain. It's pretty busted. Sorceries, looking pretty normal other than the Yawgmoth's Will. You don't usually see that in TNKs. You're only doing that if you're kind of trying to be a little bit more stormy. You see cards like DRC that can kind of point you in that direction. We're also on the Git Probe, which can help you, again, get more cardboard between your hand and graveyard. You know, if you're looking for early breach stuff, cards like this that just cantrip can kind of be good, as well as make sure the coast is clear if you're trying to jam earlier win attempts. Although we do see a Deluge, which is not really in that game plan, but is nice as a tutor target, potentially for like really bogged down game states. We got the Offer You Can't Refuse, and I know for this player, being Necro guy, it's because he wants to be able to like use this on his own spells to make mana, more so than he wants to use it to counter spells. But you know, Into the Flood Maw, another new card we expected to see, can bounce anything if you just give somebody a tap 1/1 fish. It's got to be something an opponent controls, but you can just 1 blue, instant, return target non-land permanent, just give somebody a 1/1 fish. That's tapped. We got the Born, Silence. We're not seeing Fire Covenant. Of course, we're on Nas, Intuition. Artifacts, we're on the Vexing Bauble, which is another way to have sort of a defense grid-ish kind of effect. You know, some kind of a Lavinia style Boromir, something like that. It does hit us, but we get to choose when it's in play. We get to cast it and crack it, and it's so cheap. Enchantments, this is what we're starting to see become the standard, which is Mystic Ristic, Breach, Necro, and Smothering Tithe. Born Upon a Wind, Final Fortune, both really empower these cards to kind of be a lot more cracked. And then we're on the 27 lands. We're on the City of Traders. We're even on the Glimmer Void, so going a little bit greedy with our mana base maybe. And the Undercity Sewers. Okay. All right, we're going to have to figure this one out together, folks. We got Reyhan Tymna. Reyhan enters with 3+1/+1 counters on it, making it a 3/3. Creature you control dies or is put into the command zone. If it had 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you can move those counters. Man, this is a blast from the cEDH past. I have not seen a Stone Coil Serpent in this format in so freaking long. Oh my god. This takes me back to like the Okame Adversary days where this set had just come out. Looks like we're prioritizing very cheap creatures. Also things with counters like Stone Coil Serpent. Mimnite, we'll see. Is it just there for the Tymna? We'll see, we'll see. Sarah Senate, good for Tymna beats. Haywire Might, nice little creature that can sit on board and threaten, you know, breaches, draw engines, stuff like that. Dauntless, Dothy, lots of little hateful pieces. Tiny Bones, good little value piece. We mainly only seen this in like Sisay builds. I mean, it can make sense here. It looks like we're decently dedicated to the Tymna plan. We are on Witherbloom Apprentice, meaning that we are going to be a Chain of Smog combo deck. Tithe Taker, a Grand Abolisher in the loosest quotes, you know, quotations I can give it. Hey, I've brought this to tournaments in Tymna Kraum. I can't say anything, right? And then Brina, you guys know I love Brina. Somehow accidentally became the Brina guy. If your plan is Tymna beats in a long mid-range game and you want people to be interacting with each other and just be generally a nuisance, this is a card to bring. Durance, Cutzel, another Grand Abolisher effect, Ranger, Oppo, and then 6. Okay. Oh, okay. So sorceries, we got the Chain of Smog, of course. Tutors, Winds of Abandon, we don't see too much now out, but this can actually be a pretty big card in this kind of deck. Then we have Praetor's Grasp, Calling Ritual, which is just fantastic in these colors anyways, but then Peer into the Abyss, which is not normally the kind of thing you see in this sort of deck. Although, you know, you look at the colors and you might just think, oh, Staxy, whatever. There's no Stax pieces here. There's no Rule of Law. There's none of that. None of that up here. This is just kind of asymmetrical hate. And then we're on the Sickening Dreams, which is 1 and a black as an additional cost to cast it. Discard X cards from your hand, deal X damage to each creature and each player. There doesn't seem to be like a fantastic sort of Soul Cauldron thing going on here. We'll see when we get there. But then yeah, Yogg-Will, Peer into the Abyss. So interesting combination of cards here that don't normally see in like these colors especially. And then also we're a little unsure what we're doing here yet. Instance. Angel's Grace. So yeah, we got like Calling the Weak, Dark Ritual, kind of power stuff out early. We're on the Ad Nauseam. We're not on the Orm Shan. I kind of expected to see that after I saw Tithe Taker. And we are on the Angel's Grace, which will be good with our Nas that has things like Peer into the Abyss there. Artifacts. Nothing too wild. A bunch of mana, Wondering, Witchclaw Talisman, stuff like that. Even going Grim Monolith. So we're really looking to develop out mana. Like we're serious about it. Paladin class. Spells your opponent's cast during your turn. So another like Tithe Taker effect. Static Prison, just 1 mana, get rid of anything for at least 2 turns. Pretty good. Stronghold Arena, 1 and a black. Kicker, green and or white. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life for each time it was kicked. Whenever one of my creatures you control does combat damage to a player, you may reveal the top card of your library and put it in your hand. Lose life equal to its mana value. Sort of a Tymna-y effect. Like a Tymna that works like Dark Confidant, where I'm just, if I get to hit each player, I get 3 cards and I just lose life equal to the cards mana value. On the Necropotence, awesome. Touch the Spirit Realm, and then Trouble in Pairs, one of the better engines in our colors. Only 25 lands. We're really leaning into it. We're doing the Beseiju Who Shelters All kind of stuff. Cradle, E-Zone, Rexian Tower. We are on the Talon Gates. Wow. So really, in terms of win cons, right, we're basically at Herbo, Wither Chain. Trying to see if there's another combo here that stands out. And then it's weird because we seem so dedicated to the creature beats, but then we do have these big spells that just win us the game. But yeah, and we're not even on like Soul Cauldron. What is Sickening Dreams doing here? So with Sickening Dreams, one really cool thing you can do is we can Angel's Grace, Peer into the Abyss, just like discard 50 or whatever, deal 50 to everybody, which would normally kill you, but here it doesn't. I guess that's what we're doing. This is sick. This is not what I expected at all, but that's pretty hot. Alrighty, then we have another Magda. Let's see if we can spot anything sticking out. Goblin Welder here. Another Bark from Harvester, of course. We're going to probably expect to see that as a staple. So we are on the Dualcaster Mage here. Actually on the same Dragon package, so pretty similar creature stuff. We've got Molten Duplication to go with our Dualcaster. Strike it Ridge. Basically these two being added as sorceries. Whole bunch of interaction. We're even on the Ghostfire Slice here. I kind of like that. And then Warping Whale, which can exile creature with power or toughness 1 or less. Counter target sorcery. Make a 1/1 Scion that makes you mana. Some problematic things this can deal with is Drannith Magistrate, which has power 1, Orcish Bowmasters, which has power and toughness 1. Pretty nice. And then counter target sorcery can come up. Tybalt's Trickery even. We're really trying to counter spells. Not on the Chalice of the Void. We're on the Vexing Bauble, Damping Sphere. We're on a lot of the same vehicles, it looks like. Enchantments, we are on the Blood Moon, which we didn't see in the last list. And then we're on 29 lands here, where we do see Fomori Vault. We see Abstergo Entertainment, which lets us get back a historic permanent from your graveyard. That's kind of cool. Urza's Cave's kind of interesting to be able to search up really whatever, I guess. You could search up an Abstergo. You could search up an Urza Saga, if that makes sense. Another Magda showing up here with a little bit of a different slant. All right, we've got Jeggy Sisay, which I don't know if I've ever covered, actually. This was a deck that had kind of fallen out of favor by the time I was even really doing content. Planeswalkers, we've got Saheeli, Teferi, Tyvar. We can't run things like Nicol Bolas because of Gigantha's cost. So creatures, we're on the Skrelv. Catilda, this is one I haven't seen in the Sisays in quite a little bit too. Niambi, another one I've seen less and less of. Ruby, we've been seeing some. Gwynna, at 2 mana, any combination of colors. When you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on it and untap it. Ooh, okay, hold up. Okay, we're cooking. Eorith, which can untap 2 legendary creatures, which is bonkers. I was gonna say we're not on Selvala, but Selvala is green, so can't run it. Felidar Guardian. Okay. Prime Speaker Vannifar, which is a legendary creature that is a birthing pod effect on a creature. Talion, Samut, gives us a real beatdown plan, but also it's an untapper. And then Sauron, the Lidless Eye. 3 black red. When it enters, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. Untap it, gains haste. You can spend 1 black red. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Each opponent loses 2 life. So we have, it's like an infinite mana outlet. We can use it like we use Mount Doom. Sorceries. Wow. The meme is gone. I always talk about they run the same 4 sorceries potentially. They're all tutors. Here they're just running Culling Ritual. So instance, we got quick reflexes, very few counter spells. Misstep, Swan Song, the 2 red blast, Fierce Swat, no Force of Will, can't run that. No Force Negation, can't run that. Can't double pip with Giganta. The cool thing, obviously, here that we have going on with these untappers is if we get Giganta in play, we can just go kind of bonkers, right? So Giganta comes in, it's a Wooburg tapper, 8 mana basically to get into play. But if we're able to untap it with our Inigo or Yorith, I think is his names. If it's been enabled to have like haste like with Tyvar, then being able to flicker it with Felidar Guardian, we can really pop off very quickly. Artifacts. Relic of Legends, One Ring. We are on the Soul Cauldron. Ooh, man, if we can get multiple Gigantas on our creatures, whew, we're going crazy. I don't know if this is correct or not, but there's no Jeweled Lotus in this deck, which is quite a staple for Sisay. Jamets, Mystic, Ristic, Touch, Blind Obedience, Smothering Tithe, no Oath of Teferi. Doesn't really make sense to run that. And then lands, run Hall of the Bandit Lord. Gives our Giganta haste. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, I like it. Yeah, so really going all in on the Jaggy stuff. The lack of Jeweled Lotus is kind of wild. If they're looking to do more of the only play Giganta or Sisay post-infinite mana, which I hear a lot of Sisays talk about doing, yeah, Jeweled Lotus doesn't really do you any good. It's really unfortunate you can't run some combo pieces like Meal in this deck to really clean up some of what you can do. But hey, they did it old school with the Giganta and still got it done. And they have so many options now. It makes sense that this deck could support this kind of very different build at this point. All right, we're taking a look at another TNK. Let's get to skimming. We got another Mockingbird. We got Polywog Prodigy. This is a new one. 2-drop, evolve, which is so basically when a creature enters with more power or toughness than this, put a +1/+1 counter on it. When an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than Polywog Prodigy's power, draw a card. It's a 1/3. If somebody casts a 0 mana spell, then you draw a card. When it gets up to 2, then 1 and 0s. When it gets to 3, 0s, 1s, and 2s, stuff like that. We did get to see this in coverage, and it actually looked pretty good. We even had a player clone it. And had they not missed the Polywog Prodigy triggers to evolve, they would have drawn an insane amount of cards throughout the game. And the TNK player here who played it did draw a lot of cards off of it. In a very slowed down game, it is very good. I'm not sure how it will fare in like an open meta or where there's more turbo representation. It can be very good like on the play. Proper zeros that are being cast as the game goes on definitely go down. You expect like kind of a higher density of them early or like post Nas or something like that. We see Bergie here trying to go a little lean with it. You know, there's no Dranith. And then we've got Valley Floodcaller, which is the Born Upon a Wind daughter, whatever you want to call it. Although, very notably, non-creature spells as though they had flash. Can't flash in a Dockside. We saw that. We had a judge call about that. Can't do that. I've played tested with this card in Rockside. It's been absolutely insane, mainly because of the synergy with Paradise Mantle. It's busted. It untaps itself. It buffs itself for every spell you cast. You can beat people down. And it buffs your other creatures with these types, which you might not have a lot of, but you do have a bird with Mockingbird because it enters as a bird with flying. And then you have a frog with Polywog Prodigy. So you actually, and that thing getting buffed is very relevant. If this thing gets up to 5, any spell that's cast, you draw a card, or non-creatures at least. Sorceries, we're on a few different options. I know this player was saying they wanted to lean kind of quick. Jessica's Will, speed you up. Praetor's Grasp, just super flexible, especially when you're going to see 6 other Tymna Krams in your top 16. We're on the one wheel, no Deluge here. Rituals like Coin the Week, Dark Ritual, Nas, Intuition, not too much standing out in the instance. Artifacts, bunch of fast mana, Wish Call. We're on the Grim Monolith, which has not been a staple in Tymna Kram recently really at all. And then we've got, again, the kind of staple ones we expect. Necro, Tithe, and then, you know, Mystic, Ristic, Breach. 25 lands. I love it. I think it's based because the thing that sucks with this deck is you're like, oh, my Tymna and my Crown bring me so many cards and they're all lands. Not gonna have that happen here. We are on the Ancient Tomb. We're not on City of Traders here. We're not leaning into that, and looks like we're not doing a Surveillant either. I like this approach as a, you know, a little bit of a sped up TNK. The Polywog Prodigy maybe doesn't feel like it leans into that game plan too much. We'll see how that lines up. But Valley Floodcaller is amazing at breaking Necropotence also. I love Bergie, love Jessica's Will. I love how this list looks. Another TNK. This one is looking a lot more standard. We got the Dranith Image, Metamorph, the standard 13. We are on Dam, which you don't see too much of. I have to watch out for consults because I had somebody tell me I missed that they weren't running consult like twice. Just run consult, I don't have to worry about it. Look, Freedom Waffle cut it went right back in. Come on now. We're on the Strict Serenade here, which I don't think we've seen at all today. We're on the Fire Covenant too. So opting for that and Dam as our board wipe choices. Interesting. Bunch of rocks. No Grim Monolith here. These 5 enchantments. That's where we're at right now. And then here running the full 27 lands. Sacred Foundry. I don't think I've seen this in a Tymna Kram. I remember when people were cutting Plateau from their Tymna Kram deck. All right, we got another Tymna Kraum. Let's get through it. 14 creatures. We're on Mockingbird. That's correct. We're on Lavinia. That's incorrect. No, I don't know. I haven't played with Lavinia in a while. If you're playing well, Lavinia will do you well. Archivist of Ogma. Nice little engine, especially in these longer games. And then another Bergie player. I love Harnfell. Also on the Dam and on Praetor's Grasp. Another person also on offer. Bunch of rocks. We are in the One Ring. We're doing that. The new Staple 5, baby. We're on the Undercity Sewers. And Vault of Champions, kind of interesting. Really prioritizing a white-black land, but not a fetchable one. Seems like such a random include. It seems like a day of decision or something. Then we got the Cavern of Souls, which it feels like we see less of in TNK. It can be very good if you expect mid-rangey games. I think if I'm bringing TNK to this tournament, I probably am bringing Cavern of Souls. The longer the game can go, sometimes the worse the value of Cavern can be, especially if you ever start struggling hitting land drops. But also, Cavern of Souls on Human Grand Abolisher is just such a super clean way to just close out a grindy triple Tymna Kraum pod. Abzan trash can. What is that? It's Tevesh Zot with this super wild, crazy art, and it's Sidar, who is a 4-mana creature. Honestly, it being in play is mostly a downside. It makes it to where like people can't block Tymnas. It's been described to me as just a harmonize because you just spend 4 mana and then you sacrifice it to Tevesh and draw 3 cards. What are we doing in this kind of list? Well, Tevesh Zot, even though this text is completely indecipherable, is a draw engine and is a sacrifice outlet and is a big old ultimate that's scary. But the other things are more consistent. So because we have a sacrifice outlet in the command zone, kind of naturally lines up to have something like Protean Hulk. So let's take a look at what we're doing. We got Cauldron Familiar, cEDH All-Star, usually part of like a little Hulk line where you're doing the Samwise Gamgee food shenanigans. Bunch of mana dorks, some other sack outlet like Carrion Feeder, Viscerous Seer, stuff like that. Value engines and disruptive pieces like your Dauntlesses, your Draniths, Lothos, things like that. Archon of Emeria as the 1 creature rule of law. Not even sure we're on any other rule of laws. We'll get there when we get there. Braids, technically a weird, awkward sacrifice outlet, but also just a way to turn those Tevesh Thralls into cards immediately, turn anything that you don't need anymore into cards, potentially allows you to get rid of a stacks piece that you don't want in play anymore. Cutzel, Endurance, Hop Agent, lots of things you'd expect. Skyclave Apparition, which can be really nice in toolboxy creature decks because this thing can just answer so many things. Warren Soul Trader, another sacrifice outlet. Sowing Micah Spawn is going to get us access to things like Gaia's Cradle, which this deck probably loves. And we got Karmic Guide, known for our creature combo shenanigans. Because with Karmic Guide, you know, Protean Hulk dies, Karmic Guide comes into play. Hey, this thing died. Bring back Protean Hulk. Plus, it can also make it to where, like, if we're missing a piece, like if we don't have access to one of our Hulk combo cards, we can buy it back with Karmic Guide. We have pretty clean stuff with our colors because we can get Samwise, which whenever a non-token creature enters, you get a food. You have Cauldron Familiar, which is when it enters, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. Sack a food, return from the graveyard to the battlefield, make a food, sack a food, guy comes in, cat's here, sack the cat, put the guy into play. And you can do this behind like a Grand Abolisher. Sorceries, we got a whole bunch of tutors as well as Reanimate. And then Culling Ritual. Instance, we got Summoner's Pact, Crop Rat, of course, Entomb. Want to Entomb and Reanimate our Protean Hulk. It's sick. Oh, there's some interesting cards here. My random deck card knowledge was really on point this weekend where I actually already knew what Lethal Scheme did. But it's 4 mana, Convoke, short charge creature, Planeswalker. Each creature that convoked it connives. It can let you discard stuff, which can be pretty useful for our Reanimator focused deck, or at least partially Reanimator focused. We've got Tithe even, which is a little weird for a deck with this high of a land count. Not sure if there's another real reason to do it, because you would see Tithe in like the 23 to 25 land Mardu shells, but we're on many more lands than that. Bunch of mana, Skull Clamp, we're even on the Grim Monolith, and of course we're on the One Ring, Carpet, Necromancy, no Animate Dead, no Chthonian Nightmare, Survival, Touch, and Smothering Tithe. Chthonian Nightmare I mentioned, not that we have like an easy line with it, it's just cheap. And Necromancy is here like valuing the instant speed ability of Necromancy. That's the reason to run this effect. So we got Dryad Arbor, Phyrexian Tower, Shifting Woodlands, pretty nice. Pretty normal mana base. We're not doing Talon Gates, none of that. We're not leaning super heavy into our Crop Rot package. But yeah, really cool stuff, really cool deck to see. Got to watch this one play it out. I like it. We got another TNK. What's the difference? We got Polywog, Dranith. So basically just adding Polywog to the typical package. Sorceries, we are on the Deluge. Instants, so we're on Dispel. Swords, no Path. Nothing else really standing out for the instants. Artifacts, a bunch of rocks. We're heavier on the enchantments. So this is where there's some weird inclusions, right? Mystic, Rhystic, no Necropotence. There's the Tide, though. Copy Artifact, we have seen some of. We've seen it start to become more popular. And then Steel Enchantment, we've seen a little dabbling of. We've seen just start to pop up. Chthonian Nightmare doesn't technically have like a very clean combo in our deck. You can use it to buy back a Ranger Captain, but there's no like Tymna and Kraum can't combo with it. You know, there's no I have this plus this. It just always works. There's no 2-card thing. And then we also have Mirror Maid, which enters as a copy of an artifact or enchantment on the board. So we can like double up on Ristic, kind of be like a copy artifact or copy enchantment. The downside is the pips are heavier. Kind of seems like a nice flexible option. 27 lands. We got another Cavern of Souls. Most of the rest of the mana base looking pretty normal. Getting to our top 4, another TNK. None of the new cards, just running the standard 13 here. Sorceries, we are on the Reanimate. We're on the Deluge one, the Wheel of Fortune. Dispel here. We're on Path. Power and Reb, Swords, nothing else in an instant standing out. We are on the Consult. Artifacts, a whole bunch of rocks and a Wishclaw Talisman. No Necro, but we do have the other 4. And then 27 lands. And we are in the Cavern of Souls. And we got a Nadu, shaking things up, not a Tymna. So we got a bunch of the dorks. We're on Cephalid Illusionist, so we are doing the Cephalid Breakfast kind of thing of comboing off with this in Shuko, which I haven't seen in any of the lists that I've covered so far. So, and that's a reason for us to run Thassa's Oracle. That's why we're on that. We're on the Untappers, the Phaedo Alchemist and Seeker of Skybreak. We're not doing the lands package, no Ashaya, Quirion Ranger, any of that, Nissa, blah, blah, blah. We're on the Tribute Mage and the Trinket Mage. We're on the Springheart and Antuco. Unctus as another targeter. Sorceries, a whole bunch of tutors. Fabricate, Eldritch Finale, Green Suns. Got the 2 packs, Offer, Chain, Dispel, Essence Flux to flicker our Nadu. Quick Reflexes, March. We're not on the Sea King's Blessing, but we are on Sway of Illusion, which is a similar effect. 2 mana, you can target your creatures, change their color, draw a card. We're on the Misdirection, no Commandeer. Artifacts, we got the Shuko, Flail, Greaves, Mantle, Mana Rocks. None of the like talismans, none of that kind of stuff, just the fast mana and then our targeters. Mystic Ristic, keeping it simple there. And then 33 lands. Still can't come to a consensus on the count. Utility stuff being Cavern, Command Beacon, Field of the Dead, Dryad Arbor, Woodlands, Okina as a targeter, stuff like that, and then the Talon Gates. Next up, we got a Planeswalker Sisay. We got the staple Planeswalkers, also Dihada, which we don't need, but helps out. Creatures, another Niambi player. It's also on the Plywog Prodigy. We do run a lot of creatures, so we might evolve it a good bit. Faber Elder. We're on the Chainer, which we've seen a lot less of now, unless you cast a creature from the yard, and can be a haste enabler. A lot of these other stapley kind of things. Talion is usually their value engine of choice. Sorceries, just the Demonic Tutor. Instants, we've got Offer, Quick Reflexes, Abrupt Decay. A lot of stuff we kind of expect. Deadly Rock, not always that popular. I don't feel like I see that in too many of the Sisays. Okay, on just a bunch of the fast mana, Relic, One Ring, and then we are on Chromatic Orrery, which not the most popular right now, but can lead to like some of the bigger, like easier wins. On the Cultist, Touch, Oath, Tithe, kind of the staple stuff here, and then 28 lands. No other utility stuff really. On the Steam Vents is just the 1 shock land. And then our last deck, of course, you know what it is. It's a blue farm. It's Tymna by Alan. Awesome stuff, Alan. Super cool dude. Friend and fan of the channel. Happy to see you win, Alan. You got Mockingbird, Bergie, Delny showing up here. Delny, a card we saw people testing earlier this year, not see so much of it lately. I just wish it worked with Bergie. Bergie's just too big and too good. Sorceries, we're on the Grass. So starting to see that become more popular in the TNKs. Alchemist Retrieval as a bounce spell. No Flood Maw, running the Retrieval. Okay, interesting. We're on the Offer as well. Artifacts, kind of the usual, except we are on the One Ring. Enchantments, those 5 staples. And then 27 lands. We're on the Cavern of Souls. Another good clean TNK. We did see like a decent little bit of testing with Tymna, and we are seeing people lean into effects. We saw like Bergie was a staple of Tymna for a long time. Delny came in and out. Mockingbird, of course, is a new option. But here we didn't even see the expected swap. Image out, Mockingbird in. We saw Metamorph out, Mockingbird in. Let me know down below what you think of these mini Tymna deck lists. It was a very grindy tournament. The Southeast meta kind of tends to lean that way. You like it or you don't, you know? I'll be playing Rockside at the next events, but I'm also hoping to just do more commentary because I really enjoyed that. If you do check that out, let me know what you think down below. Again, thank you to Beholder, Kiwi, Ashani, all the people involved running that. As always, folks, thank you so much for watching. Go play cEDH. Have a good one, everybody.